Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to our Business Performance weekly webinar series. We're kind of excited today because this marks the 76th webinar that we have produced through Business Performance USA. And we're always glad to have back Emily Shoup. We've really enjoyed inviting Emily Shoup to speak for us and for our audience because her value set and what she talks about is right on target for what business performance produces week over week. So we want to welcome you today and we want to welcome Emily. Our topic today is Create Your Culture for 2015. Business Performance, if you don't know, is a voluntary association founded by executives who wanted to help organizations to really thrive and grow in this century. So we are bringing to you week over week. Right now, it's a webinar series. We're very fortunate to be adding a radio series come this in January, and we will have podcasts. So stay tuned because there's lots of ways that you can get these messages. You can join our voluntary association just by going out and becoming a member for free at businessperformanceusa.org, businessperformanceusa.org. And I am the voice of Cynthia Stewart. I'm managing partner for Evermore Services and one of the co-founders for Business Performance USA. And you'll see the picture there of Emily Shoup. We want to make sure that today you engage with us. So we're going to put up some polls and ask you a few questions. Go ahead and tell us what you think when we ask you those questions. And also know that I am always monitoring the question box. So any of your questions will be forwarded on. I will talk with Emily about those questions because we have various breaks. The webinar will run usually about 1:45, so we'll have about a 45-minute webinar, give you a chance to get to your next meeting. And with that, I think what I'd like to do is go ahead and introduce Emily. She is a speaker, a coach, and the creator of Central Illinois' premier team building event called Rally the Team. Um, yeah, I think that's the new name. She started it as Operation Our Town, and now it's Rally the Team. And it's also part of her programs, popular programs called the Shoop Shift, 6 gears to rev up your culture, team, and leadership. So as you can tell from these, culture, team, and leadership are her passion, and that's what she likes to teach about, or actually to speak about, I should say. Emily is the go-to leadership girl when you want to learn how to maximize the efforts of your team the right way so you can go from being just another manager to being an influential leader. Her clients are leaders who know that they have to get more done with less and that focusing on their company culture and employees will enable them to be successful. You will find Emily insightful, engaging, and energetic. She is the owner of Shoup Training and Consulting. And you can find her her webinar. We'll show it at the end so you can find her on the web. And with that, I think I'd like to go ahead and switch it over to you, Emily. I'm going to change the presenter and you can unmute your mic. And I'll let you know when we see your screen. And we are waiting. Ah, there we go. It's coming too.
Oh, the drama. We're just building
Ah,
the suspense.
there we are. There we are. Okay, Emily, I'm going to
Awesome.
mute and take us away.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the great introduction. Um, Always excited to be talking about teams and leadership and how we can work better with each other. And today's topic is really what it's all about for me. It's really, where the butter meets the bread, the rubber meets the road, whatever the right analogy is for you. But without a great work culture, not a lot of great work can get done. And with all the work that I do with the various clients and helping different leaders in different stages of their leadership development or different stages of their organization, maybe they're going through some growth, or maybe they're going through some cutbacks, some changes. Really, it's all about your culture and how you are going to survive and thrive going into 2015. And our environments have gone through a lot. Well, the business environment has gone through a lot in the last couple of years. And really, when it comes to culture, I just think that it is the competitive advantage that we can count on. And it's something that it doesn't cost a lot of money. Depending on how you execute, you can invest in it, and I highly suggest you invest in it, but there's a lot of inexpensive or free ways to boost culture and really give your team and your employees and your business overall that competitive advantage in the marketplace, not only for retaining the best talent, but for retaining the best customers. So that's what we're going to work on today. And we're going to be talking about the steps that you'll take to create your culture in 2015. And most of the time when I talk to people, they don't think about it as steps that they can take. So we're going to dive into that to help you really think about it in that way instead. So we're going to start off, we wanted to make sure that you guys were highly engaged, but we're going to start off with thinking about right away, do you have the culture you want right now? So I wanted to get an idea of why people were on the webinar today. Is it because, yes, you have the culture that you want and you're just kind of looking for some tips? Is it, no, we don't have the culture we want? Or is it, yes, but there's some other initiative, there's some other drawing force, there's something going on that's making you say, yeah, I need to be on this webinar. So Cynthia, if you could run a poll and ask them this question, if they have the culture that they want right now, it's yes, we have it, we're right on, or no, we don't have it, we don't like the way it is, or yes, but we're looking at some specific changes. If you could run that poll, that would be awesome.
All righty, and the poll is in progress, and we are just about to close in on the votes. Let's give it a few more seconds, folks, if you want to go ahead and just pick your answer. All righty, we've had 100% vote, so I'm going to close that poll, and your screen should be coming back. While it does, I'll share results. We said 100% yes, but. So, yes,
Ooh,
but there could be some improvements. So that's good.
okay. Yeah. Well, and you never know where people are coming from, so that's why I wanted to ask that first, because sometimes it's no, we have no culture. What does culture mean? It's a horrible place to be. So you're starting from a very, very different place. But if it's yes, but that means that there's some things in place that you like, and then there's some things that you want to improve upon. So that's super to know. Okay. So when people start talking about culture, the first thing that people almost always gravitate towards is the environment that people work in. And a lot of times the assumption is that that's the only place that you can focus in order to improve your culture, and therefore it can get kind of pricey. Um, and your environment, your physical work environment does have a lot to do with it, but it's not everything. Um, and the one thing that I've noticed with working with people is they'll say stuff like, yeah, but we could work on our culture, but we don't have that type of environment. We're not in an office setting, so we don't have an opportunity to have a good culture. It seems that a lot of the cultures that have been idolized in the media always are an office setting, and so people kind of rule themselves out for not being able to create something like that. Um, but there's a lot of people that work in manufacturing settings or production facilities or agriculture or call centers, and they can all of those environments can have a great culture. It doesn't matter if you sit with people in cubicles next to you or if you're standing in an assembly line. There is a culture for everywhere that you work, um, and it has to make sense for your environment, for what it is that you're trying to produce, for your products, for your services. So the other question that I get asked a lot of times, people say, well, Emily, could you just tell me the perfect culture, and I'll just go ahead and do that. I'll follow your cookie cutter, step one, do this, step two, do that, and then we'll have the perfect culture. Well, the problem with that is the answer is it depends. So if you're sitting in an office setting like this, then your culture, there's a lot of different things about how information flows, about how things happen. You don't know if in this environment people are having customers come in and meet with them. All sorts of things vary in this type of setting versus a manufacturing plant. So to say that, well, you need to have certain things and certain colors in your environment or certain activities or spaces doesn't always make sense. So it doesn't there is no cookie cutter perfect culture, which I know is a little bit annoying for me to say you have to figure it out yourself, but that also makes it mean a lot more to your environment. Not everybody can have the ping pong table and unlimited coffee. That wouldn't make a lot of sense in a production environment. That wouldn't make a lot of sense necessarily in a law office. It wouldn't necessarily make sense if you were working in a high security zone. In those situations, offering a ping pong table well, unlimited coffee might work just about anywhere, but or at least unlimited caffeine. But that whole idea that we have to offer a ping pong table and free pizza doesn't necessarily fit everywhere. So that's not the solution. The solution is not a cookie cutter. And that's why today I'm talking to you about different steps that you're going to take.
We had an
So you
interesting,
have your environment and there are pieces.
I'm sorry, Emily, we had a quick question.
Go ahead.
Is the
Oh, sure.
environment more about the esprit de corps then, or is it about the physical environment?
It's going to be a little bit of both, but today we're going to pull out people and how we behave separately from the physical environment. So what I've seen a lot is that people just want to buy something that will make the culture better, and that's where that whole ping pong table comes in. Or what if I just bring in pizza on Friday? Then we should have a good culture. And those are very physical things that you could do, but don't without the whole picture, they don't create the best culture. Does that help?
Yes, thank you. I thought I was unmuted. Okay, thanks. Appreciate that.
No problem. Okay, so the next piece that we're going to look at is a little bit on the behavior side. So before we start mapping out our steps, we're going to look at a few pieces here. And on the behavior aspect of it, um, there's just a lot about a culture if you look that you can glean from how people treat each other or how people behave when certain things happen. So how do the people act at work? Is it a setting where people play nicely and maybe even err sometimes on being too nice so they're not really honest or share things that would be considered constructive criticism, but they don't want to share that because they're being really, really, really nice? Is it a situation where people yell and scream in order to get their way, and those people tend to make things happen, and everybody just follows their directions? Um, is it the kind of place where there's a lot of collaboration and people are sharing ideas or information that's needed? Is it something where security is of utmost importance, and not necessarily security but privacy? So there you're dealing with things that has very confidential information, and how is that being handled? And the one thing that I wanted you to think about is when it comes to the behavior at work, that's the piece that people really start to take home. So if you went in for a job interview and you look at the environment and you kind of look around like, wow, this is a neat place. They have, um, neat posters on the walls. It's decorated differently, or it's very inviting, that's really kind of cozy, those kind of things. Or wow, they have a really sterile environment, a really safe environment. Safety is of utmost importance here. I can really get on board with that. And that's usually what draws people in the first place. But then over the long term, those measures can only go so far without the matching behavior. If you have great comfy couches and unlimited caffeine, but everybody can't get along, that piece of behavior is going to outweigh whatever pieces of the environment that you put in. So the behavior is going to be critical to think about. And when when you think about how people treat each other, the the one thing that I always think about is how you treat anybody is how you would treat everybody. So it's if you're willing to treat your employees one way, but then expect them to treat your clients another way, that's going to be hard for them to handle. And just like for yourself, if you're treated poorly, it's going to be hard for you to treat people the right way as well. So one of the people I was talking to recently was saying how, well, we want to treat our clients this way, but our employees, they're a dime a dozen, so we can treat them any way we want. But how you treat anybody is how you treat everybody. And to really think about that when you're creating your culture is really important, especially for your for your employees to maintain your clients. Oop, oop. And so again, along the lines of thinking about behavior, I recently went out to Vegas, well, a couple months ago, went out to Vegas, and there's a TV show called, I don't even know what it's called, but Counts Customs is on there, and they take old classic cars and turn them into customized vehicles for people and some motorcycles. And we decided to hunt down their shop while we were in Vegas. It's not on the strip. It was actually really kind of hard to get to because it was just a guy with a shop that landed on TV, really. And but the whole experience I found myself talking about for weeks and weeks afterwards. When we got there, there was somebody at the curb that was greeting us. So if you were getting there by taxi, we happened to walk a few blocks from where we were to there, and there was somebody right there at the curb telling with their Counts Customs shirt on, asking you if you needed any help and pointing you in the right direction. Then you rounded the corner and you were going into an industrial area, and there was somebody else who was asking you if you needed any help and sending you in the right direction. And that's the way the whole tour went of their facility. They had it mapped out. Everybody was super nice, super helpful, and there was even a crew that was out washing some vehicles. And people were talking to them, and we're all tourists, so we're all taking a bunch of pictures, and it was really fascinating. Everybody had Counts Custom shirts on, so you assumed that they were all employees, but they were actually many different subcontractors. And so the company that was washing the cars explained to us that they were two guys in a van that went around and washed cars for different companies, and that they were actually based out of somewhere else. And how fascinating it was that we were treated exactly the same by every one of the subcontractors. And everybody there shared that as nice as the people seem on TV, that's really how nice they are all the time to work with, to be around, and all that stuff. And that really got me thinking when I was thinking about culture for today. They really nailed it when it came to how they wanted everybody treated, and they took steps to make sure that happened. Did they have to give everybody a shirt necessarily to make all that work? No, the taxi company could have had their own person there without those shirt on. The people washing the car could have had their own shirts. All those details didn't really seem to matter until you looked at the whole customer experience and the whole behavior of the whole group. Everybody seemed like a cohesive team. So that's just one of those things an example that I wanted to give you guys of somebody who looked at how the behavior affected every single piece of that business. And so really it comes down to the behavior and the environment really equals your culture. The most successful organizations are the ones that realize that the vibe, that feeling you get in that how we roll as a team is what gives you the competitive edge. And that's why it's really important to look at those pieces. And we're going to break it down a little bit into the future, in the next couple minutes here. But the behavior and environment go together in all the pieces that we're looking at. So when I talk about culture, everybody immediately goes to Google and talks about how wonderful Google is. And it is really fascinating the different things that Google has done to create the environment that they want. And there are tons of pictures I've thought about putting out there about how they have different setups for people. But what they really value is how different they are all the different walks of life, the how much people are focused and determined to find solutions, and then creativity is a huge aspect of their business. So it makes sense that their environment, that their physical environment is laid out the way that it is. But that's not the only way that things can happen. The other one of the other examples that I love to talk about is the Container Store. And not only is it a really fun store to shop in, but they really look at their employees as a huge asset for their organization. And they really get the whole point that if they have one great employee is equal to three good employees. And I can't tell you how many times that I've been working with people who just tolerate people who are not that great on their team. And it's one thing to invest in people to help them boost their skills or boost, increase engagement. But it's another thing if you know that they are just dead weight on your team, and you're sacrificing the great people and the good people for people who don't even rate within there. And they value those employees so much that they spend a ton of time on training, um, which I just can't even picture what that must look like. But it shows the employee how much they value them as an individual, and what they want in return is that air of excitement and the employees to value every single person who walks into their store. And if you've ever gone into the store, you do get that feeling, and it really pays off. So these are just a couple of examples to get you thinking of ways that different companies do it. The Container Store, it's not an environment where people are sitting around in cubicles and where that whole ping pong table and free pizza would necessarily fit in. So it's a retail environment. Um, Things are always changing, things are always happening, probably high stress during the holidays or during peak times, but they focus on their culture in a different way, and it really works for them. The other cool thing, if you watch around Valentine's Day, they also do a Valentine's Day promotion, but it's all about how they love their employees. It's really neat to watch. So let's dive into how are you going to define your culture?
So can we take a couple questions, Emily?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Um, One of them is this gentleman talks about the fact that his company posts the code of behaviors on the posters, but no one really acts that way. And the managers seem to be the worst in terms of not living up to the code of behaviors. Suggestions? What suggestions do you have for employees working in that environment?
So can you repeat the question?
Yeah, the company posts their code of behaviors, but the managers are the worst at not following them. People don't act
Oh,
according to the code of behaviors. So, what can an employee do in that environment?
okay. So so unfortunately, you cannot change somebody else. So you can't make somebody else act in a certain way. But yourself, you can act and fit in with that code of conduct. And if it's something where, perhaps they are not seeing where they aren't following that code of conduct, or not following, where it fits in, there are ways that you can bring it up in conversation with them that, I made this decision in this move because my understanding is that fits with our policy, which is blah blah blah, and kind of putting it back that way, and offering up, is that how you see it too? Is that how you see it fits? And really being the living example is what I found has been the best way for me to feel good about it. The hard part about cultures and where the manager isn't necessarily living up to it, is that it can be very contagious. And I know that for me, I had a situation where I had somebody who was very dishonest that I worked for, and and I had to grapple with how to deal with that every day. If that's not what the company stood for, but I was in a situation where I had to be very careful so that I wouldn't lose my position with it. But I found ways to make sure that I lived up to the standards that I thought were important. I reached out to other people. I created a strong network within the organization. Um, and so that I knew that I was standing on in the right frame of mind. But then in conversations with him, either one-on-one or in a situation where I thought that perhaps he was pushing to be dishonest with a group of people, I would I would stand up and take a stand for it. I know it's scary, and you have to uh, trust your gut when it comes to the resources, but I also look at it as if none of us as employees are willing to step up and say that's not right, the changes are never going to be made. So within your comfort zone, make sure that you at least are being authentic to yourself at a bare minimum. Do not compromise for anybody else. And then if that other person, look for the other ways that you don't want to be necessarily tattling on people, but there are times where ethics are involved. That I had one client that was concerned that another manager just wasn't being ethical and nobody was watching. And I always look at it, what about the poor, what if I was the poor consumer at the other end of that? I would want somebody to make sure that people realize that that wasn't happening. Um, and so finding ways to politely call people out on where they're not matching, sometimes it could be, maybe they want to, um, one of the values is to be home at night with your families, but your manager is pushing that you work 100 hours a week, that's going to take some pushing back. And so, again, I don't know how big the organization is, so I don't know where else you can go for resources, but hopefully that gives you a start.
Yeah, the be the living example. We think that's brilliant. There's some chatter around that. So, great answer. One person asked if you knew a little bit more about the Container Store and the kind of training that they're. What kind of training? What skills are they training?
Oh, yeah. If you actually go to Container Store's website, they have a whole um, slide deck on their values and what they're all about. It's really fascinating, and they put a lot of it in pictures, which I like because I don't like to read a lot. But they have a big document you can read too. But if you go there, it shows how they train on their values and making sure that people are extremely well knowledged in just what they offer, their product offerings, and then their biggest thing goes along the lines of people don't. People don't go to the Container Store to buy a box or to buy one shelf. They're really looking for a solution to a problem that they have. And so what they work on is people being problem solvers and figuring out, okay, if Emily comes in and says, well, I just need a box for my scrapbooking supplies, is that really what I needed, or did I need help figuring out how to organize 50 different things, and this better solution might be out there? And so they train on that, and they train on how to make it in a retail environment a very consultative experience for the client. So you feel like all your needs were met when you come in and it's a retail environment. So they do a lot of training in those areas. It's really neat.
Well, we also had a daughter that worked for Apple, and they have over 500 hours of training a year.
Oh my goodness, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
So it's really just constant on the job training at the Apple store. And if you go in there, they look so casual and they look so, different and varied. I notice very diversified staff. But
Hmm.
in the end, their goal isn't so much to train as it is to, I mean, not sorry, it isn't so much to sell as it is to make sure that people are getting the right solution. So very similar concept to the Container Store, be the solution.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, yeah, and it's so much easier for the clients, which then you can, as the employee, how much more valued do you feel because they took the time, they didn't say, go make this happen, and here are no resources. They made sure all the resources are there as
yeah,
well.
all
Okay,
right. Thank you.
so you're welcome. Thanks for interrupting and letting me know that there are questions out there. I get into my world, into my zone here. So when we're talking about defining your culture, that can seem very overwhelmed and overwhelming, and I don't want you to be overwhelmed. I just want you to look at it from just a few areas. So we're going to look at the people, the environment, product or service, and customer experience. And when you're going to make changes, so everybody said that they were in that yes but category. So we're looking at what we can be improving upon that we already have. When you look at these areas, you just pick one in order to focus on that in 2015. So with the people, you're looking at, the different areas of hiring, what promotions need to be made, what development, professional development or otherwise, like we were talking about with the different Apple Store or Container Store, the attitudes that people have and that they share with others, what that looks like, the similarities that and differences that you have in your team members that you want to really call out, and what is it about that makes your team valuable. So those are all different ideas of things along the lines of people that you could work on. In your environment, there's the physical space that we talked about, and really thinking about it is it a creative environment? Do you need to set up things that help people be more creative? Is it collaboration that you're looking for when it comes to environment? Are there things that you need to do for that? Is it privacy that people need in order to get work done and serve the clients the best way? Looking at different aspects of that physical environment is part of the equation. Your products or services, maybe that's the area you want to focus on. You feel like you kind of like everybody's, jiving pretty well together. The environment's pretty good. But what about how we are, how our products and services are getting out to the market? What is it about those that we could be focusing on, about what we offer, what problems we solve? Are we solving the right problems? Are we solving enough problems? Are we solving too many problems? And really having that being the focus of the culture for everybody to get on board with, and really focusing on another area would be the big picture. A lot of times, companies start with a big picture in mind, and then we get really busy. And a lot of times, what I see, and especially in companies with that 25 to 100 employee range, that the bigger picture can all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, I should say, over time, it can get lost. And maybe that's just what you want to focus on for this year is our bigger picture. And so that creates a different culture for your products and services. And then the customer experience and really how you treat clients. That's part of your culture as well, and you can be working on building that piece. So are you treating them as customers? Are they partners? Are you solution providers like we were talking about earlier? I'm a Harley rider, and I am fascinated by the fact that Harley works on all of us being disciples. Like we worship the brand, and that's been something that they've worked on in all aspects of the customer experience bleeds into the whole culture of the organization. So these are the different areas that you could pick, and for creating a plan, it can be very overwhelming, and so I just want you to pick one area. Everybody again said yes, but. So what is the one area that you're saying, but I would like some improvement in this area? So you pick that area, and then I wanted to know from you guys what area you picked. So thinking about it real quick, what is the number one area that you want to focus on in your culture in 2015? Is it the people, environment, product or service, or the customer experience? And Cynthia will open the poll for you.
Okay, the poll is launched.
In the meantime, were there other questions?
There was a comment that it seems that Apple's training seems to extend even beyond the workday
Mm,
and into their culture. They really try to create kind of this whole camaraderie among their workers, and they go out and do stuff after hours and so forth. So it's really kind of interesting.
mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have everyone voting, and I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. And there was a bit of a split, half and half, in terms of people or product or service. So not the environment, not the customer experience, but people, product or service.
Okay, so awesome. So we know that that's where you guys are going to focus and for 2015. So great. We already talked about some of the things that we can be doing along those lines, but how do we take it a step further? The next thing you're going to do is you're just going to start asking questions around that particular focus. And who are you going to be asking questions to? You're going to be asking anyone, everyone, leadership, people that are in leadership positions within your team or within your organization, employees, clients, your competitors, your colleagues. When I say anyone and everyone, that's who you're going to ask when it comes to how you can start making these changes. And we're going to go into that here next. So, okay, you're asking a lot of questions, but what questions are you going to ask? You're going to ask what, how, and why. So you're going to ask what advice do other people have to offer? If you're thinking about um, leadership or your competitors or your clients, your colleagues, what advice do they have for you if this is the kind of change that you want to make in your culture? Ask them what works. When you're asking your clients or your colleagues, what works for you if I'm making this change with the people? And then asking your employees what would work for them. How do what do you think would make this the right change? And and what would you do if you were the one who was trying to make this change? And just really starting to ask all sorts of questions like that. Then asking how, if somebody has done it before, how did you make that happen? I know a company that really focuses on everybody having fun at work. And so that's one of their cultural values. And so, how did they make that happen? How do you make this support environment fun for people? And asking those questions. And then asking people on your team, your employees specifically, how have they seen it work for other places, or what have they heard of as far as ideas that would have worked for other people? And how would they like to see it implemented? If you're going to focus on maybe being an organization, again, along the lines of people, maybe it's something that the change that you really want to see is that people are more thankful, saying thank you more often. Well, how would they recommend that you make that happen within the organization? What kind of things can you offer? And then talking about other questions that you can ask, why is it important? Why this change? And why do they think it would? So you're picking it out and you're saying, okay, I think it's going to be along the product or service, and here's why I think it's important as the leader or employee of whichever place you're coming from. But when you ask other people why they think it might be important, that will give you a lot of clues as to how you can make it stick over the long haul. Why is it really important? And anytime you're making any change like this, you really want to ask your employees and not just drop it on them. Get them involved as much as possible. If you feel like you're asking them way too many times, you probably haven't asked them enough questions. But just really getting them engaged in this is the environment that we want to create. And one of the cool things is you'll have some people that may sit back and say, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. But most people, when they hear, I really want to focus on us, being happier at work, then people start to get happier that that's what we're going to focus on is being happy. It's one of those things that it starts to evolve just by you starting to ask the questions. So that's a cool, super cool side effect for you. And thinking about that and how much you should engage your employees in these types of questions, I was wondering, another quick poll for you guys, if you've ever asked your employees to help with your culture in the past. So I'm going to let Cynthia open that up and ask you guys real quick if you've ever asked your employees to help with your culture in the past.
Okay, and the poll is launched. It's just a simple yes or no.
Yes, I resisted the urge to try to figure out a whole lot of detail, but yes or no. After I go through all those questions, I want to ask a lot of questions, but this is the simplest way.
Well, our audience says that 100% of them, they say yes. They are
Okay.
asking, they are engaging their employees.
Well, that is awesome to hear, because a lot of leaders that I've talked to have really struggled because they've tried to launch something on their own and it didn't necessarily get anywhere because they hadn't engaged anybody. So you're going to take your own past experiences, what worked for you when it came to asking about the culture, what worked for you when it came to getting the culture that you want. Everybody said they were at a certain level that they enjoy. So really asking and doing some reflecting on how did you get to that point, and then engage them to take it that to that next level, to that further point, and then really make sure that it's something that everybody can buy into. One of the things that I've seen people struggle with is that they had a grandiose idea and it was just something that did not work for the work that the team was doing. And so you really have to make sure that that makes sense as well. And that's where you really want to be engaging the employees in any sort of changes. So then the next step is you're going to really start to plan it out, right? Makes sense. We're going to be looking at creating a plan, an action plan, just like everything else we do for our businesses. We plan out marketing, we plan out communication, we plan out product development. But when you're thinking about your culture around things, a lot of times that's a byproduct of just how things have happened and how everybody molds together. But what I would like you to do is to take some time to figure out how you want it to look. So you're going to get really clear on what it is that the change that you're trying to create, and then map out steps that you could take in order to make that happen. And if you think about it, the easiest way for me and for my clients is to ask yourself at the end of the year, what would it look like if this was a success? If I was able to make this change that I would really like to see in my people, or I would really like to see in my products or services, what would success look like? And then back into it. Okay, how would I have to get to that point? Is it that, our services have evolved and they're really meeting the client's needs so much better than they ever were before? Great. Back into that now. How would you make that happen, and how would you know that's happening, and giving yourself some real tangible steps to take from that. And some of the steps that you might take involve, a kickoff meeting. Like, here's our plan for 2015. We are going to be really focused on us as the people and how we interact, and collaboration is the key for us. So every move that we make, we're going to be focused on collaboration, and so a kickoff meeting might make sense. Maybe it's a new rule that you institute that a certain thing in your business cannot happen until this piece comes through. So maybe it's on the lines of increasing some communication. Well, you cannot move forward if your project gets to this point and you haven't engaged these 3 people in keeping that communication open, whatever the piece might be. Or there's things that along the lines of, if we're being happier at work, we have to have new rules of how we're being nice to each other, and what that looks like. And believe it or not, it sounds kind of silly, but as adults, we just kind of get busy and we all are trying to do our jobs well. And we kind of forget about all those rules we learned in kindergarten about how to play nice with each other. And so you start making new rules and making sure people realize that that's what it looks like. A lot of times I have people, because it can be kind of daunting, look at it as a game. Who can say please and thank you the most this month? And that's how you're going to work on it. And each month you're going to work on some sort of pattern of behavior that you would like to see change, and it's a game that you institute that everybody comes up with. It's kind of like the reverse of if you have a swear jar, where you're putting money in if you swear. Maybe you need to, have money going in for a pot for fun, for good things that you want to see. And then looking at a pattern that you want to change with a cue and a reward. It really helps if you can highlight the behavior that you want to change, and there's a very specific cue, like along the lines of product or a service. It could be as simple as Every time a client shares with us that they wish, if they say something along the lines of, I wish that your product did this, that employee is then documenting it and sharing it in the next team meeting. And so that's a cue that they can be looking for to develop that product. And then, the reward is the recognition that they are sharing those type of things in your meetings. It could be as simple as that, and you'll really start to change patterns of behavior. And so a lot of times people want to take on huge endeavors and really make it way more complicated than it is. So, but what I really want you to do is just start and really just look at, what are 3 steps from today you're already thinking, okay, well, I know if I want to change these aspects of how we work together as people, and maybe it's along the lines of certain behaviors, there's 3 things I know right now that you could just start doing before you even ask everybody else, before we go into the rest of it. So just start making those changes, and while you're figuring out the rest of the plan, just take a stand and start. And the more you emulate the behavior that you want other people to see, the more you'll see it reciprocated. So just find 3 and write those down today to just start taking action. And then go back and finish your plan and doing all the asking and keeping things moving forward. But I just wanted you to think about how, it's that time of year where we all start thinking about New Year's resolutions, and people really take time to change. And so when you're changing cultures, it's going to, there are things that seem like they happen overnight, and then there's things that it's like, man, we've been working at changing this forever. But, we're humans, and habits are hard to change. Um, and so you want to be intentional about the changes. And if you focus on it now, just like if you start eating well now and working out now, by December of 2015, you will be glad that you did. You'll see changes. It may not be perfect, but you will definitely be glad that you did by the end of the year. Unfortunately, it's not, there's no magic pill. We can't just take the magic culture pill and everything is perfect. And you just do that on New Year's Day and you're done for the year. Just like working out and eating right, we have to do it every day along the way and really see those results. So I am trying to be conscious of the time here. Cynthia, did any other questions come through?
We have a few comments, but things like um, setting up the model of success within a reasonable time frame, and then sort of calculate backwards to where you are in order to kind of figure out the plan forward. So
Mm-hmm.
a good way to do that, just a comment that they like that. And then just remembering the social and etiquette skills necessary to really build a great environment, things that should be really part of the workflow.
Yeah, and the fascinating part to me is that so many people just get caught up in the work that they're doing that they forget about those, just, like all the things we learned in kindergarten of how to interact with each other. And the more we can just focus back on those simple things. And right now, my 7-year-old is obsessed. He is like he is on patrol for proper, um, I guess it's etiquette, but please and thank you are an absolute must. And it's amazing how many adults he will stop them in their tracks, because if he says thank you, or if you say thank you, there's you're welcome is mandatory, because that's the rule. And he is like the police when it comes to if you are not just saying you're welcome. And it's also thank you and not thanks. So it's been great experience for us. A little crazy at times, but it's such a good reminder of it's those little things that start to create your culture. And that's why I wanted everybody to think about just some things that you can just start doing, and then really looking at that big picture of what will this look like if it's successful. If everybody is, focusing on being thankful, or having fun, or being more creative, or creating an environment where security and privacy is of the utmost importance. Those are all very valuable things to different organizations. But if you can't paint the picture of success, people can't help you figure out how to get there. And so that's really beneficial. with that, I know that we went super fast, and obviously there's so much more we could be doing to dive into your particular culture and really help make it work. But you really just want to define what it is that you want to have happen. You know, pick that area to focus on. I like to just pick one area because the other areas kind of fall into place after you start focusing on that. Ask, ask as much as you can, and continually ask, because once you start asking, then you're going to and you start making moves, you're going to ask people how it's going and if you're on the right path. And that'll help you be in a much better place by December of 2015. Um, and then plan, putting it on your to-do list that I'm going to do things that match with changing these behaviors is really important because, again, business and life and our work just kind of happens to us unless we take control and plan and make decisions about those little things that we're going to do in order for things to happen. And then just start today and work on it every day from now until the end of the year, and you'll be super glad that you did. And with that, I will hand it back to you, Cynthia.
Thank you so much, Emily. We see why you're the go-to girl. I know that people really do reach out to you, and I'm bringing up my screen, folks, so give me a minute. I'm hoping that I'm bringing out my screen. Give me a minute. I'm not even finding it, so let's see if it'll come up for me.
Where's my screen?
Where'd you go? Let's see if I can find it. Well, it's funny that my presentation won't come up. Well, I'm going to, for some reason, the presentation won't come up. I'm not exactly sure why, but I find that I get to learn lots of things about GoToWebinar. But let me just go ahead and thank you, Emily, for your insight in creating culture. And I want to let folks know that we do have one more webinar this year. It'll be our 77th, and it's Financial Excellence in 2015. We have Milton Corsi, who will be joining us. And we always look forward to Milton as well. He's quite a teacher, and he's going to be bringing an economist, I should say, to the table to talk with about 2015, which I think that's pretty cool. Milton is with Evolution Training and Consulting, and has quite a lot to say, and we always look forward to his webinars. And then come January, we'll start again with the culture of accountability with Nancy Lynn Roberts, and she will be talking about screening for volunteers. She's the background screening queen, really, in this sphere. Very experienced and very knowledgeable and very informative. So we look forward to that as well. Thanks, everyone, for your kind attention today. And we did have a question come up at the end that said, can I share these webinars with my friends at work? Absolutely is the answer to that. We will ask you to just go join businessperformanceusa.org and look for the webinars, and you can share any and all with your friends at work. Thanks, everyone. And with that, I'll be shutting down the webinar. We hope you